بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك، وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. وأكبر. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه، ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما، إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي، أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا، وأسألك مستأنسا، يا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي، لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك. كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي، والإحسان إلي، والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل، وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك، مجري الفلك، مسخر الرياح، فالق الإصباح، زيان الدين، رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق، باسط الرزق، فالق الإصباح، ذي الجلال والإكرام، والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى، وقرب فشهد النجوى، تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله، ولا شبيه يشاكله، ولا ظهير يعاضده. قهر بعزته الأعزاء، وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه، ويسر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه، ولا يغلق بابه، ولا يرد سائله، ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين، وينجي الصالحين، ويرفع المستضعفين، ويضع المستكبرين، ويهلك ملوكا، ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاصم الجبارين، مبير الظالمين، مدرك الهاربين، نكال الظالمين، صريخ المستصرخين، موضع حاجات الطالبين، معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها، وترجف الأرض وعمارها، وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا، وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير، وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك، وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحنمت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، وصل على السبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة، وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي، حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك، صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر، وحفه بملائكتك المقربين، وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. صل على اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا، يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المن به شعثنا واشعب به صدعنا وارتق به فتقنا وكثر به قلتنا وأعزز به ذلتنا وأغن به عائلنا واقض به عن مغرمنا واجبر به فقرنا وسد به خلتنا ويسر به عسرنا وبيض به وجوهنا وفك به أسرنا وأنجح به طلبتنا وأنجز به مواعيدنا واستجب به دعوتنا وأعطنا به سؤلنا وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين اشف به صدورنا وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق آمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا فصل على محمد وآله وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله وبضر تكشفه ونصر تعزه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
محمد وآل محمد.
Jazakallah, Brother Yahya, for his sehet, salamti. Please recite a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Amma ba'd. Today is the last day in the series of lectures that I've been delivering to you regarding the ahkam, the laws of prayer, looking at ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt and how they command us to do the different actions of the prayer, the different adhkar and qira'ah of the prayer. There are a couple of ahadith I would like to share with you in the end regarding the tashahhud and the taslim at the end of the prayer. And then there are two important fiqhi points I'd like to share with you as well. We don't usually get a chance to teach these kinds of things, and I think it fits really well with this, and it's a really powerful tool for you to have in your toolkit. So first of all, before I start, there's also a YouTube video series that I had recorded many years ago, I think maybe 10 years ago, called Rediscovering Salah. It's different from what we've done here. It's mainly focusing on the spiritual aspects of the different things that we say and the different things that we do. So what's the significance of stretching your neck out when you're in ruku'? So what ahadith do we have about that, or what have scholars said, or what is the significance of how do you what are some tools for how to develop hudur al-qalb, focus in the prayer? So different things like that. It's a 30-part series. And I think, alhamdulillah, it's one of the lecture series that I've done that I think has had the most effect on people. Around the world, people have listened to that. So if you would like more of this kind of information, but slightly different, then that's a good series to go through. And very important in that series, there's a video demonstration of the wudu. and a video demonstration of the whole prayer. So I go through a 2-rak'ah prayer and go through all the bodily positions step by step, and then I do one whole prayer as a demonstration as well. So I think it'll bring together a lot of the things we've talked about during these days as well. All right, so regarding the tashahhud, and actually regarding the entire prayer, when we pray in jama'ah, one of the things that distinguishes our Shi'i prayer from other sects of Islam is that the Imam in our prayer says everything bil jahr. It's recommended for the Imam to say everything out loud, assuming it's a jahri prayer. If it's a ikhfati prayer, dhuhr or asr, then he says the qira'ah bil ikhfat, but again, everything else is bil jahr. So we have a hadith that actually is the basis for this from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. قال ينبغي للإمام أن يسمع من خلفه كل ما يقول. It's appropriate for the Imam to say everything in the prayer such that those who are behind him can hear it. ولا ينبغي, this is also important, لا ينبغي لمن خلف الإمام أن يسمعه شيئا مما يقول. It's also important that the ma'mum not say anything such that the Imam can hear him. Right? So we do the first part, but then sometimes we fail in the second part. In Shi'i jama'ahs, we also tend to have everyone saying things very loud. Allahu Akbar, everyone says Allahu Akbar very loud when they shouldn't. Only the Imam says Allahu Akbar, Takbiratul Ihram out loud. Everyone else should say it quietly so that only they can hear. But regardless, even I say this, and then immediately, because the habit's so bad, the prayer happens, Allahu Akbar, everyone says Allahu Akbar very loudly. Right? And all the other things, the qunut, the qira'ah, of course, you're silent, but even the adhkar, you should say it. You have to say everything yourself, but you should say it bil ikhfat, so only you can hear it yourself. Not so the Imam can hear it. But the Imam says it loudly enough for everyone to hear. Yeah, so that's one adjustment that we have to make in our jama'ah culture. Now regarding the taslim, we have some interesting ahadith about so the taslim is actually the last action of the prayer. Right? The takbir that we say at the end, that's one of the ta'qibat of the prayer actually. That's out of the prayer. The taslim is where we end the prayer. So this is the one hadith that we have from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq again, alayhi salam. So he talks about the significance of the taslim. What's the philosophy behind it? Why do we say assalamu alaikum in the end of the prayer? Right? We know assalamu alaikum as a greeting. Whether we're meeting someone or whether we're leaving their company, we say assalamu alaikum. So how does that connect to this taslim, the salam that we say at the end of the prayer? He says, at-taslim alamatul amn wa tahlilus salah. So when you say assalamu alaikum, salam means peace. We're saying peace to you. Right? This is actually a jahili custom that people would have. Right? Think of what you know about the Jahiliyyah and the kind of warmongering that they had and the violence and the feuds and these kinds of things. So if you met someone and you wanted to tell them that I have no ill will towards you, then you would say assalamu alaikum, as opposed to some other greeting like I'm going to kill you or I'm going to fight you, right? So assalamu alaikum was a way to say that you're safe from me, I'm not going to hurt you. So the Imam explains, he said, إِذَا سَلَّمَ عَلَيْهِمْ وَارِدٌ أَمِنُوا شَرَّهُ وَكَانُوا إِذَا رَدُّوا عَلَيْهِ أَمِنَ شَرَّهُم. So when I enter and I say assalamu alaikum, then you all know that you're safe from me. And now if you say wa alaikum assalam, then I also know that I'm safe from you. وَإِن لَمْ يُسَلِّمْ لَمْ يَأْمَنُوا. If I don't say salam to you, then you better watch out. Right? Then you're not safe. You don't know what I have in mind then. And same, if you don't respond to my salam, then I shouldn't feel safe, and I don't know what you have in mind for me. وَذَلِكَ خُلُقٌ فِي الْعَرَبِ. This is one of the practices, the customs that the Arabs had even in the Jahiliyyah. فَجُعِلَ التَّسْلِيمُ عَلَامَةً لِلْخُرُوجِ مِنَ الصَّلَاةِ. So Allah then took this assalamu alaikum, which had been a Jahili custom. First of all, He made it into a Islamic greeting. This is the salam, this is the greeting that we have now as Muslims. But in the prayer, He's put it in the prayer as a sign that you are now exiting the prayer. Right? You're now getting out of the prayer. So you say assalamu alaikum, you're almost like bidding farewell to the prayer. What? Tahlilan lil kalam. Now that you say salam, it's now halal for you to speak. When he said takbiratul ihram, you made it haram for you to speak other than what's required in the prayer. But now that you say assalamu alaikum, you're now free to return back to normal speech. وَأَمْنًا, and then the significance of salam in particular as peace, just like the two people say peace because they want to show there's goodwill between them. Now we say assalamu alaikum to our prayer, أَمْنًا مِنْ أَن يَدْخُلَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ مَا يُفْسِدُهَا. So now I've finished the prayer, I can no longer corrupt the prayer. The prayer is now safe from any corruption that I might introduce into it. Right? I've done it from beginning to end. I've fulfilled the requirements of the prayer. Now that I've finished and I say assalamu alaikum to the prayer, I'm basically saying, oh prayer, you're safe from me. No longer can I do anything that's going to harm you, that's going to corrupt you. I can kind of close the book on that one prayer and it goes into my book of deeds. That's not fully true. This is significant, but there are some things. There is one thing we could do after the fact, and that is have ujb. Right? We can ruin our acts after the fact by becoming so content with ourselves and so satisfied with ourselves that we say, actually Allah, that was such a good prayer, mashallah, Allah owes me one. As soon as I have that kind of attitude towards my past ibadah, then it no longer is ibadah, now it becomes a source of sin actually. That's no longer a way to get closer to Allah. Now I think Allah now owes me because I did something for Him. I'm no longer an abd. Now I think of myself as an equal or superior to Allah, and I've ruined everything. So that is possible, but the salam is basically saying that you're now safe. I've fulfilled all the wajibat, I've completed the prayer, and now the prayer is safe from me corrupting it. All right. The last thing I want to share with you is something that we don't typically practice, but it is a recommendation. Our Sunni brethren, they do practice this. In the taslim, when they say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh at the end of the prayer, they also turn their head this way and that. And we have lots of ahadith in the Ahlul Bayt telling us to do this. Right? The fatwa of our marja also says to do this. So let me read the fatwa of Sayyid Sistani first. It's not in his normal books of the Risala Amaliyah, but it was asked as a question, and he's responded in the following way about this question. He says, يُسْتَحَبُّ لِلْمُنْفَرِدْ وَالْإِمَامِ الْإِيمَاءُ بِالتَّسْلِيمِ الْأَخِيرِ إِلَى يَمِينِهِ بِمُؤَخَّرِ عَيْنِهِ أو بِأَنْفِهِ أو غَيْرِهِمَا على وجه لا ينافي الاستقبال. He says that it's mustahab for a person praying by himself, furada, or for the imam, during the last taslim of the prayer. So you say, Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi, then you say, Assalamu alayna. Those are part of the prayer, those finish the prayer. Then you finish the prayer with Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. At this point, he says, if you're the imam of the jama'ah, or you're praying by yourself, then it's mustahab for you to turn slightly with your eyes, or kind of just with your head towards the right side when you're saying that salam. Not so much that you turn 90 degrees and now you're turning away from the qibla. That's too much, right? It seems like the way Sunnis practice, they do that. They extend as far as they can over their shoulder, so they're fully to the right and fully to the left. We're not supposed to do that. Slightly, just kind of with your eyes and maybe slightly with your head, you say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One time, for the imam or for a person praying furada. What about the ma'mum? Those who are in the line praying together with someone on their right and someone on their left, for them they go both ways. وَأَمَّا الْمَأْمُومِ فَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ عَلَى يَسَارِهِ أَحَدٌ فَكَذَلِكَ. So say the person who's on the extreme left side of the jama'ah, your left, right? He only has people on the right side. So he also does what the imam does. He only says salam to the right side. One time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, he turns to the right side. But the rest of you who have someone on your right and on your left, you turn both ways. وَإِن كَانَ عَلَى يَسَارِهِ بَعْضُ الْمَأْمُومِينَ. If there's some ma'mums also on the left side of the person, فَيَأْتِي بِتَسْلِيمَةٍ أُخْرَى مُومِئًا إِلَى يَسَارِهِ. Then you also say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to the left side. Right? And then you can also say a third one. He says, وَيُحْتَمَلُ إِسْتِحْبَابُ تَسْلِيمٍ آخَرٍ لِلْمَأْمُومِ بِقَصْدِ الْإِمَامِ فَيَكُونُ ثَلَاثَ مَرَّاتٍ. You can say a third taslim as the ma'mum addressing the imam of the jama'ah. right? So these are all recommendations. Now it's sufficient to do what you probably have been doing. Just say the 3 taslims, your last one, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, facing the Qibla, and you're done. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That's sufficient. But it's recommended to do this iltifat, to turn slightly to the right, always. Right? Whether you're praying by yourself, whether you're at the end of the left side of the jama'ah, whether you're the imam. If you're in the middle of the jama'ah or on the right side, then also turn to the left side. One to the right, one to the left. And then a third one, you say Assalamu alaikum again, a third time towards the imam. With the intention that I'm not saying salam to the imam. All right, so this is something that is not typically practiced amongst us, but it is a recommendation. We have a hadith about this. The fatwa of our marja is also telling us to do this. And so this is something that we should at least the way to have, the attitude to have towards mustahabbat is to at least try them once, at least do them once. Even if it's a mustahab, you might say, well, it's not wajib, it's not haram, so what's the big deal? It's not important. That's the wrong attitude to have. All the ahkam of Allah are important. Right? And if we belittle any of the ahkam, even a mustahab act, and say, oh, it's just mustahab, that's the wrong attitude. That's doing istighfar. We're taking lightly the sharia of Allah. Even a mustahab is important. Even a makruh is important to observe. Now, you have the choice not to observe it. That's a choice you are permitted to make, and that's fine. But to have the attitude that it's not important, it's insignificant, oh, it's no big deal if I mess with it, that's the wrong attitude to have. Right? So, at least practice something once. If you learn a new dua, a new practice, a new amal, whatever it might be, try to get yourself to do it once. At least you follow the sunnah of the Prophet and the sunnah of the Ahlul Bayt. Right? Now you can see whether this is something that you can practically incorporate in your life, whether it's something that, like mustahabbat, they speak to you. The advice that spiritual kind of teachers will give is listen to yourself. When it comes to mustahabbat, listen to your inclinations, your inspiration to do something. With wajibat, you have no choice. You have to say the prayer, whether you feel inspired or not. But with a mustahab act, here, if it clicks with you, if it makes you feel very good, if you feel motivated to do it, then that's good. That's a tawfiq that Allah has given you, then push yourself to do more. If it's tedious, if you feel tired, if you feel like this is not something practical or not something you're interested in, that's fine. Just do it once so you've practiced the sunnah. Have the attitude that this is part of the sunnah, part of the sharia. I respect it, but I can't implement it. I'm too weak, I'm too, whatever it is. I have some shortcoming, but I don't have the tawfiq to do it yet. But at least I've tried it once. Right? All right. Salawat ala Muhammad. So I'll share 2 hadith with you about this taslim and the turning. There are several. There are about, in Wasa'il al-Shia, he has about, I think, 15 or so ahadith to this effect. But I've selected 2 of them. One is from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. إذا كنت في صف فسلم تسليمة عن يمينك وتسليمة عن يسارك. So if you're standing in the line of prayer in Jama'ah, then say 1 taslim to your right and 1 taslim to your left. لأن عن يسارك من يسلم عليك. Why? Who are we saying salam to? Well, you're saying salam partly to the person next to you. So as you turn to the right, you're facing your brother or sister who's praying, and he's also going to turn towards you the next time to the left and say salam to you. So you're saying salam to each other. Right? All to the right first and then all to the left. وَإِذَا كُنْتَ إِمَامًا. If you're the imam of the jama'ah, or as Stacey said, if you're praying by yourself, there's no jama'ah, then فَسَلِّمْ تَسْلِيمَةً وَأَنْتَ مُسْتَقْبِلُ الْقِبْلَةِ. So this hadith says, if you're the imam, just say you're 1 taslim facing the qibla. But there are other ahadith that say you should turn slightly to the right. So Stacey Sainz put them both together and said, yes, turn to your right, but don't turn so much that you're turning away from the qibla. Right? If you just turn a little bit, 45 degrees for instance, then you're still in the range of qibla. It's only when you turn 90 degrees fully to the right and fully to the left that you turn away from the qibla. So he's combined the 2 and said this is what we can get from the combination of these different ahadith. Face the qibla, but also turn to the right. So turn slightly to the right. And then a second hadith, this is the last hadith I'll share with you about the prayer. This is also from Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam. The transmitter, Al-Mufaddal ibn Umar, he asks the following question about the illah. لِأَيِّ عِلَّةٍ يُسَلِّمُ عَلَى الْيَمِينِ وَيُسَلِّمُ عَلَى الْيَسَارِ. Why is it that the person offering the prayer at the end turns towards the right and turns towards the left to say salam? What you understand from this hadith, as I mentioned before, you can understand things from between the lines. He's not asking, what do I do? How do I say the taslim? He already knows that you turn to the right and left. It's already a given. It's already part of the culture of the Shia of that time, of Imam Sadiq's time. He's just asking why. Why do we do it? What's the reason behind it? Right? It's very different from us now. Now it's something new. Maybe I told you for the first time, you've never heard it before, or you've heard it, but you didn't practice it. Right? But for them, it was a given. This is the way everyone prays. All the Shia pray. He just wants to know the reason for it. قال لأن الملك الموكل يكتب الحسنات على اليمين. He says because you have these two angels that are writing your deeds. And he says that you turn to the right because the angel on the right is writing your hasanat, your good deeds. وَالَّذِي يَكْتُبُ السَّيِّئَاتِ عَلَى الْيَسَارِ. And the one who writes your bad deeds is on the left side. وَالصَّلَاةُ حَسَنَاتِ لَيْسَ فِيهَا سَيِّئَاتِ. The salah is one of the hasanat that the angel on the right is going to be writing for you. There's no sayyi'at in your prayer, hopefully, unless you've done ujb and riyā and these kinds of things that hurt the prayer. But it's a hasanah, it's a good deed. فَلِهَذَا يُسَلِّمُ عَلَى الْيَمِينِ دُونَ الْيَسَارِ. This is why, if you're praying by yourself, you just say salam to the right side, because you're saying salam to the angel who's writing the good deeds. You don't directly say salam to the one on the left side, because right now, inshallah, he is out of work. He's unemployed. We want to keep him unemployed, so we don't want to wake him up from his slumber and keep him asleep by not doing bad deeds. So we don't say an explicit salam to him. We just kind of include him and say assalamu alaykum to the one on the right. The kum being the plural includes the one on the left too, but we don't directly address him, the Imam is telling us. فَلِمَ لَا يُقَالُ السَّلَامُ عَلَيْكَ وَالْمَلَكَ عَلَى الْيَمِينِ وَاحِدٌ. But why don't we say assalamu alayka? Because there's only one angel on the right side. Why do you say assalamu alaykum? Well, in general, we have guidance that there's certain things that you say plural for always. Even though you're only speaking to one person, if I see one of you, I still say assalamu alaykum. We're not supposed to say assalamu alayka. Unless you say the person's name. In our ziyarat, we'll say assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. So since we're mentioning the person's name and explicitly, then we have to say assalamu alayka or assalamu alayki. If we're speaking to a woman, assalamu alaykum if it's plural and so forth. But in general, if I walk in and there's one person, I say assalamu alaykum. If there are 5 people, assalamu alaykum. If they're women, assalamu alaykum. We don't change the pronoun. We just say assalamu alaykum always. When someone sneezes, right? If I sneeze, I say alhamdulillah. What do you say? Only I sneeze. I'm one person, but you say yarhamukumullah. May Allah have mercy on you, plural. Right? So these are two things. There's a third one I can't remember right now. There's a hadith that has these 3. I've forgotten the third one. But these are part of the etiquette that you say plural, even if it's just one person. You don't say yarhamukallah, you say yarhamukumullah. All right, so the Imam says the reason why you say the plural to the right side, even though the angel on the right is only one, not plural, is because لِيَكُونَ قَدْ سُلِّمَ عَلَيْهِ وَعَلَى مَنْ عَلَى الْيَسَارِ. So that you include both the right angel and the left angel when you say the one salam to the one on the right. وَفُضِّلَ صَاحِبُ الْيَمِينَ عَلَيْهِ بِالْإِيمَاءِ إِلَيْهِ. But you've given preference to the one on the right because not only are you saying salam to both of them, but you're turning towards the right, towards the angel on the right side, because he's the one who's, inshallah, writing the deeds that you're now engaged in, which is the prayer. Then he says, Mufaddal ibn Umar asks, فَلِمَا لَا يَكُونُ الْإِيمَاءُ فِي التَّسْلِيمِ بِالْوَجْهِ كُلِّهِ وَلَكِنْ كَانَ بِالْأَنْفِ لِمَنْ يُصَلِّي وَحْدَهُ وَبِالْعَيْنِ لِمَنْ يُصَلِّي بِقَوْمٍ. قال لأن مقعد الملكين من ابن آدم الشدقين فصاحب اليمين على شدق الأيمن. All right, so maybe I'll skip that part. Well, what he's asking is, why do I not turn all the way towards the angel? Why do I only turn a little bit? So the Imam explains that the shidq is this part of the corner of your mouth. He says that the angels are not fully here and fully here. Like they're not sitting on your shoulders, for instance. They're not bodies that are, bound by the spatial, limitations and things that we have. He says that they're more here, they're kind of next to your cheeks. So you don't have to go all the way here to face the angel on the right. He's right here. And so just turning a little bit is sufficient to address him. All right. That's fine. So he goes on and he explains the philosophy that you're also saying salam not only to the angels, but also if you're in a jama'ah, to the people on your right and your left, the other musallin who are praying. So your taslim is addressing them as well. And that's why if you're in the jama'ah, then you turn right and left. But if you're the imam, you just turn to the right. All right. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Now, the last two things I want to share with you are not directly related only to the prayer. They're more general principles. They're very useful things to know. And hopefully if you are a reader of the Risala, meaning if you are familiar with it, if you take some time every once in a while to read the Risala of your marja to make sure that what you're doing is correct, you will, I think, find that you're more enlightened once you know about these two principles, because many of the fatwas are based on these two principles. And it's just a good thing. Once you know how something works, then I think you feel more connected, and it's nice to see how things make sense based on these principles. So the first one is a principle called Istazhab. Istazhab is one of our principles that we get from the Imams. I'll share the hadith with you, and then the kind of the idea behind it. The hadith is the following: لا تنقض اليقين أبدا بالشك ولكن تنقضه بيقين آخر. Never undermine a certainty that you have with a doubt. The only thing that can cancel out a certainty is another certainty to the contrary. All right, so what does this mean? A practical example is the following. Let's say I did wudu. I know at 5 o'clock I did wudu. I'm not sure if I broke the wudu after that. I'm not sure, did I use the bathroom or not? I can't remember. Did I fall asleep or not? I can't remember. I can't remember if I did any of the things that break the wudu, but I know at 5 o'clock I did wudu. I remember that. So that's a certainty. This principle says, based on these circumstances, you have a certainty prior to an uncertainty, you still have wudu. You should still assume that your wudu is intact. You don't have to give entertainment to that doubt. Doubt is out the window. Stick to the yaqeen that you had, the certainty that you had that you did wudu. It can work the other way as well. I know I used the bathroom at 5 o'clock, so I know I broke my wudu. Now I can't remember, did I do it after? Did I do the wudu after that? All right, so now the same principle applies. So I know I broke it. I know I didn't have it. I'm not sure if I regained the tahara after that. So now I have to assume that I don't have it. So I should go and do wudu if I'm going to pray. Right? It's a common sense principle, but it's important to see that it applies in the deen as well. Another practical example is with this issue of moon sighting. Right? People always have this question, say, it's not certain whether or not we've seen the moon. It's the 29th, say it's the 29th of Sha'ban, and it's cloudy. The whole United States is covered with clouds. Nobody is able to see the moon. We're not sure. There's some rumors here, rumors there that maybe someone saw it. Everything's uncertain now. Whether or not this is the last of Sha'ban and tomorrow we should start fasting for Ramadan, or no, it's one more day of Sha'ban, 30 days of Sha'ban. Right? This principle applies. We know for certain that today is Sha'ban. Right? We're not sure if Sha'ban has ended and Ramadan has started. So what do I do tomorrow? I can't start fasting with the intention of Ramadan until I'm sure it's Ramadan. So I assume that it's still Sha'ban tomorrow until something comes to make me certain that now the month has changed and it's now Ramadan. So tomorrow's Sha'ban for me. Yeah? That's a very useful principle. Same with tahara of things. So you're sure that something's purified. You're not sure if some najasa got on it or not. So you assume that it's still pure. Vice versa also works. You know it was najis, you're not sure if someone purified it. So you assume that it's still najis, mutanajis. Yes, this principle is called Istazhab. Istazhab, it comes from the same root as sahaba, suhba, to carry something along, to be a companion, to bring along. So you're basically bringing along that yaqeen that you had in the past, and you're carrying it forward to your current state, because no other yaqeen has come to contradict it. Only doubts have come about. Right? And one of the principles of Islam is it wants to drive out doubt from us. Doubt is shaitan. Right? Paranoia, waswasa, these kinds of things that people have, this is from shaitan. This is not Allah making you more pious. Right? So He doesn't want us to entertain doubts. He wants us to be certain. And so he wants to cancel out the practicality of those doubts and say, stick to your certainty, only act on what's certain. Don't pay attention to your doubts. All right, that's one principle. The second principle I want to share with you is called qa'idatul faragh, the principle of faragh. Faragh means to be done with something. Now this principle acts, let me give you the example first, and I'll share the hadith with you. So we have composite acts like the wudu or like the prayer, where it's made up of multiple parts. And at the end of that act, sometimes you have doubts about something that happened during the act. So I finish my wudu, I'm standing in the bathroom, I finish my wudu, and after I'm done with my wudu, I've just done mas of my feet. Now I start to think, wait, did I wash my left arm or not? I can't remember. Right? Did I do this? So I start to doubt about different parts of the wudu. If that's the case, this principle says ignore those doubts. Once you are done with your act, then any doubt that arises, ignore it. You're free from that doubt. You don't have to act on it. Assume that you've done it correctly. You're now farigh. You're now free from that act. You finished the act, completed it. So you don't have to pay attention to any doubts that arose. Now, if you're sure that you missed something, then that's certainty. If I know for a fact that, and now I remember, I can see that my one arm is still dry, and I'm certain that I didn't wash it, then it says it doesn't apply. Then I have to go back and start from that point, right? And make sure that I complete the wudu from that point on. But if you have doubts after the fact, then you ignore those doubts. Same thing with the prayer. It's composed of all these different parts. Say at the end of the prayer, I say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And now I start to doubt, wait, did I say the prayer correctly or not? Did I recite Fatiha or not? Did I, I start to doubt, did I do 3 rak'ah or 4 rak'ah after the fact? Because I've finished the prayer now, I'm allowed to ignore all those doubts and assume that the prayer I prayed was correct. I don't have to, it's not piety, it's not extra taqwa to say, just in case, let me pray it again to answer this doubt. No, doubts are shaitan. Ignore the doubt. He's giving you full permission to ignore your doubt, and actually he wants you to ignore the doubt in this case because you finished the act. That's different from if you're in the middle of the prayer. If you're still in the middle of the prayer, you've just, for instance, you're in ruku' and now you can't, I don't know, maybe you forget, did I say the dhikr or not say the dhikr? Well, since you're still in the ruku', you haven't finished the whole act, then you should go ahead and do it to make sure that you fulfilled your duty. But that same doubt, if it arose after the prayer is done, then you could ignore that doubt. Right? A slight modification to that principle is it's called qa'idatul tajawuz. So in the prayer, we have certain points of no return. Right? We have arkan in particular. Once you reach a rukn, you can't go back. Right? So say I start my prayer and I'm in ruku' now. Once I'm in ruku', now I start to doubt, wait, did I say my Fatiha? Did I pronounce it correctly? Maybe I've been struggling with saying wala dhalleen. I've been saying wala zwalleen, for instance. Now did I say it correctly or did I say it the wrong way? I can't remember. Well, now that you're in ruku', you can't backtrack. Because if you get up and then go say your Fatiha again, then you have to come back to ruku'. That's 2 ruku'as and 1 rak'ah, your prayer is gone. So you can't do that. So here also, because your doubt has arisen after you've reached a point of no return, where you can't go back, ignore your doubt. You can ignore that doubt, continue with your prayer, and your prayer is correct. You don't have to fix it. Okay? So the first principle has to do with finishing the entire act. When you're done with the prayer altogether, if any doubts arise, then ignore those doubts. The second variation on that is when you reach a point of no return in the middle of the prayer, ruku' for instance, or sajda, once you reach that point, then don't pay attention to any doubts that arise before that point. Just focus on what you're doing and keep going, and your prayer is correct. So that's an interesting thing, I think, for us to realize, that Allah is not interested in reality so much as He's interested in us doing our duty. And the duty is sometimes less than reality. It could be that I actually made a mistake. Right? I use this principle and I say, well, I had a doubt about my wudu, about my prayer, but I'm finished now, so I'm going to ignore the doubt. Well, maybe in reality, I did it wrong. Allah doesn't care about that. He doesn't care. He doesn't want. Like, He's weighing the pros and cons for all of humanity. If He starts to tell us that if you have a doubt, then you should always just in case go back and do it again. If He tells us that, our life would be miserable. Islam would be unlivable. Right? Can you imagine if you had to be precautious every time you eat meat? You had to be absolutely certain that your meat is halal. Could I come to your place and eat? Could you come to my place and eat? How do you have certainty that the meat that I'm serving you is actually halal, actually dhabiha, actually mudakka? Who knows? Do you know where I bought it from? Do you know how that person killed it? Did he make a mistake when he was slaughtering it? You don't know that when you come to my place. I don't know that when I come to your place. When I go to a restaurant, a Muslim restaurant, I don't know for sure where did they get the meat from, how did they kill it. So if Allah said, don't eat meat until you're absolutely positively certain that the meat is mudakka, then farewell to any sort of dinner parties, any sort of connection between Muslims. No Muslim market with meat stores could survive. Who would buy from a butcher? Because you would never be certain. Everyone would have to be out there in the farms and doing their own dhab, because only then can you be certain that the animal's been slaughtered correctly, because you've done it yourself. You've seen it with your own eyes. So to make sure that doesn't happen, we don't have that dystopian Muslim society. Allah has made principles to say, give the benefit of the doubt. You assume, your duty is to assume that the meat that your Muslim brother, Muslim sister, the Muslim shopkeeper is serving you or giving you or selling you is halal and it's mudakka and everything's correct. That's your duty. Assume that. Now, maybe sometimes you're eating najis food. No problem. It's more important that we have good relations, that we have a functioning society, that it's a practicable religion. That's more important than that we worry about whether it's actually halal or not. Right? The hadith of Imam Baqir actually says that if it weren't for this, if it weren't for these facilities that Allah has programmed into the deen, then no Muslim would eat from the food of another Muslim. Right? There would be no way for you to eat from my food or for me to eat from your food. We'd have to assume that maybe it's haram. I don't know for sure, so let's not eat. But it's more important, Allah has determined it's more important for us to have a healthy society, for us to trust each other, not to be suspicious of each other, and to eat from each other's home, eat from each other's food, and to have that social bond with each other. That's more important than making sure that we're not eating haram. Now, if I know for certain that you're eating haram food or you're serving haram food, then I can't use this principle. Right? If you tell me that this is not mudakka, it's not halal, then I can't do anything. Then I can't use this principle. But I should assume, until there's evidence, solid evidence to the contrary, I should assume that whatever food you're serving me, whatever food this Muslim shop is selling me, whatever food this Muslim restaurant, Muslim-owned restaurant is serving me, it's all halal. No questions asked. That's in the greater interest of our Muslim society than having doubts and paranoia and these kinds of things. Right? So these principles are a great mercy. He's given us the ideals, but He's also given us all these facilities to make sure that we don't give in to doubts, because doubts are from shaitan. Let me just share these hadith with you, and then we'll close for the evening. With regard to Qaidatul Faragh, the first principle, once you're done with the act altogether, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir says the following. كل ما شككت فيه بعدما تفرغ من صلاتك فامضي ولا تعد. So he says, whenever you have a doubt after you have completed the salah, after you complete the prayer fully, then continue and don't repeat. Move forward and don't repeat. Yeah, that's once you've finished the prayer. This similar hadith about tajawuz is in shakka fi ruku' ba'da ma sajada falyamdi. Once you get to sajda, if you have a doubt about your ruku', then continue, don't go back. Because you can't go back to the ruku' and add a second ruku' to make sure that you did it correctly and you said the dhikr. If you do that, you have two ruku's in one rak'ah, and the prayer is baitul. Right? So once you've gone to sajda, you're at a point of no return, don't backtrack to ruku'. فَلْيَمْضِي وَإِنْ شَكَّ فِي السُّجُودِ بَعْدَ مَا قَامَ. If you stand up after your sajda and now you have a doubt, did I do two sajdas or one? Did I say the dhikr correctly for the sajda or not? Ignore it, keep going forward. Now you've reached the next position, and you can't go back towards the last position. فَلْيَمْضِي. He says, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ شَكَّ فِيهِ مِمَّا قَدْ جَاوَزَهُ. Whenever you have a doubt after you've passed through that act and moved to the next act, وَدَخَلَ فِي غَيْرِهِ فَلْيَمْضِي عَلَيْهِ. Then continue, keep going forward, don't look back and don't address those doubts that you have. Ignore them. All right. So these are two important principles, actually three important principles: Istazhab and faragh and tajawuz. They're usually discussed in more detailed classes of fiqh and in the hawza and these kinds of things. But I think in this form, it's also very digestible for you all. And like I said, if you look in the Risala Amaliya with an eye to these principles that I've just shown you, you'll see lots of issues that are there, lots of rulings that they give are based on these principles. Right? So all of a sudden things will start to make sense a little bit more than maybe they did in the past. They don't seem like arbitrary rules, but now you start to see the reasoning behind them from the logic of Islam. We have a few minutes left, but I'm going to go ahead and close. Allah, we ask you to shower your mercy and blessings on Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. Allah, help us to practice our prayer in particular as the Ahlul Bayt have taught us. Let us pray as we have witnessed them pray. Help us to follow in the footsteps of the Ahlul Bayt in all of the affairs of our life. Accept our fasts and our qira'ah during this month and our prayers and all the acts of righteousness that we're trying to do for your sake. Accept them and forgive us for any sins that we commit. Allow us to have the tawfiq to meet the night of Qadr and to do our different acts of worship during that night and magnify the virtue of those acts. Forgive us for our sins of the past year and increase all of our sustenance and our opportunities and our tawfiqat to please you in the coming year. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent and merciful. All praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessing us with existence and granting us the opportunity to move towards Him. Respected ulama, Maulana, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you all on these auspicious nights of Ramadan. As we go through this spiritual journey, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fill our hearts with kindness towards each other and grant us tawfiq to reap the full benefits of this sacred month of Ramadan, inshallah. Here I would like to take a moment and recognize the efforts from Hujjatul Islam, Maulana Sheikh Rizwan Arastu, as tonight was his final night for this month of Ramadan for the lectures. We have benefited immensely from these lectures on spirituality through fiqh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him and his family with sehat, salamti, and well-being in this world and hereafter, inshallah. recite a loud salawat for him. Brothers and sisters, I have a couple of announcements before Maghrib Azan. Series of 4 Majalis to commemorate the Shahadat of our first Imam, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. These Majalis will start on this coming Saturday, May 1st, and these will go on until Tuesday, May 4th. The program will start at 7:45 p.m. with Dua Iftata, inshallah, followed by namaz and iftar. The Majalis start time will be 9:15 p.m. and these Majalis will be addressed by Hujjatul Islam, Maulana Amir Mukhtar Faizi, inshallah. Amal for the night of the 19th and the 21st will take place on Saturday, May 1st and Monday, May 3rd, inshallah. These Amal will start after the conclusion of Majalis, inshallah. I just want to remind everybody these Majalis are also being broadcasted live through our Baitul Ilm YouTube channel. We encourage all brothers and sisters to follow us online if you are unable to make it in person. Registration is required for attendance in masjid. As an email was sent out this afternoon, we encourage everyone, if you haven't registered, kindly register. And please pay close attention to the SOPs as they have been updated and they are required to attend in person, inshallah. Salawat. Tonight's iftar is being sponsored by the families of Brother Nayyar Raza, Mahmood Rizvi, Mir Muhammad Shah, and Sister Nida Imam for their sehat, salamti, sustenance and rizq, well-being in this world and hereafter. Please recite a loud salawat. Let's recite a Surah Fatiha for these sponsors, Marhumeen, and all Marhum Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, preceded by a loud salawat. Brother and sister, we just have a couple of minutes before Maghrib Azan. I just want to remind everybody, I know we have made the announcements before, to kindly keep a one-person distance. Approximately, it's about 1 star between you and the next person. We have to follow the SOPs. So keep a distance of 1% between yourself and the next person standing next to you. We're still going through pandemic. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to eradicate this disease from this earth and keep us in His protection, inshallah. Now I would like to request, we have a couple of minutes, but I would like to request our young brother Yahya Arastu for the recitation of Maghrib Azan. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.